What's going on, YouTube? It's Pastor Jay. Really quickly, I know I normally owe you guys a long form video, and the long form of whatever I do on TikTok. So on TikTok, I do a short form, like about 6 to 8 minutes, and then here on YouTube, you guys get the longer, more in detailed, in depth version of what they get on TikTok. So they get it first. You guys get the longer, more in detail version of it. I try to keep it fair, right? So since you're not getting the first version, I give you guys the detailed version of it. And so if you do prefer a short form scale of these things, come on over there and join us on TikTok. Have some fun with us over there. Learn a little bit of something while you're there. If you like the more in detail thing, come on over here. Like, subscribe, share this with somebody. Hopefully the goal is that if I'm here, if I'm not alive anymore, no matter what, hopefully it reaches somebody when they need it, where they need it. That's the goal. So hopefully you guys don't mind sharing it and subscribing with us and liking this type of content. And I'll just keep it coming every day. That's the goal. So all that being said and done, the history of storytelling. Good luck finding who was the first storyteller. The one thing we do know is that stories have been passed down from generation to generation, from young to old, throughout all the religions, throughout every ethnicity. Storytelling has always been something important. Hence the reason I am doing this tonight as opposed to out in the daylight, because nighttime is an important factor, and I'll tell you why in a second. The storytelling is very important. Even going back to little kids and us telling our children, right, bedtime stories, reading them a story before bed, not knowing how much that affected our children growing up, not knowing the level of either one, damage, or the level of good that a story can do to a child as they get ready to go to bed. So there's one word I want to talk about. I'm going to say that one word in two different languages. In the Hebrew, it is yetzer, and in the Greek, it is melatao. So yetzer and melatao are both the same word in English, which is imagining or imagination, imagine. In Hebrew, the word yetzer or imagine means to conceive a thing or to frame it out. The same way that a woman would conceive a child, or the same way that an architect would frame out a building. The same way that as that child develops and the heart starts to pump and the fingers start to grow and the ears and the legs and the body begins to take shape and frame, and therefore you take something that was once unseen and you give it actual reality. You bring it into something that we can see and tangibly hold and slap baby powder on it and baby lotion. And so it becomes a real thing at some point. In the Greek, melatao just means to revolve around in the mind. So a thought or a thing that you have in your mind that you play around with over and over in your mind, and you kind of refine it in your mind. Hence what imagination is. Now, I think throughout our existence, everybody probably knows the story of Noah's Ark, where you got the animals that went into the ark 2 by 2 and then 2 by 7s. If you don't know the story, go ahead and read it. And in that story, God tells a man named Noah, I'm going to flood the earth, build an ark out of gopher wood, and save your family. Okay? We're going to skip on past, not even past, but we're not going to go as deep as, how long it took Noah, all this extra stuff. Just, go read it. It's in the book of Genesis. But what I want to stop at is Genesis 6. I believe it's around verse 5, Genesis 6 and 5, where God is speaking, at this time, and says that he's going to flood the earth. Now, most of y'all that have grown up in church hear the story that God's going to flood the earth because of man's sin. The issue is, what we don't talk about is that God says, I'm going to flood the earth because the imagination of man has been continually wicked, or man's imagination is continuously wicked, right? So God is upset at the way mankind has used their imagination. In the book of Psalms, David said, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? That means an empty thing. Why are they using their imagination for things that won't bring them fruitfulness, that won't bring them to the place of promise, that won't bring them somewhere where they can make it? Why do they think about things that are not beneficial for them? Is that scripture? Let's jump on back to Genesis, though. That was the book of Psalms. That was free. That was David, right? But in Genesis, God is like, the people are conceiving something. They are yetzering something. They are yetzering the framework of something in their mind, not understanding the damage that this thing can do. And so God said, even before it gets to ridiculousness, he was already plotting, I'm going to wipe out the whole earth with a flood because their imagination is continuously wicked. Why is that important? That is important for a few reasons. Number one, who's more dangerous? The person that stabs you, right? They stabbed you dead in the heart, right? You stabbed, you're dead. But what if somebody would have told you, hey, I'm plotting on killing you. I'm imagining how this is going to work out, right? The murderer is not a person who stabs you. The murderer is the person who was already imagining how they were going to murder you. That's the person you need to fear. That's the person you need to concern yourself with. So the imagination of a thing is the conception of a thing, not in the reality that you know it, not in your 3D reality of, this is real because I can conceptually touch it. This is real because I can physically see it. But in the spiritual realm, the term conception is an actual spiritual manifestation of a thing before you see the physical manifestation of a thing. Science itself has proven that a lot of the stuff that we have in society today, when they go back and study it, of course, the law of vibration, everything moves, nothing rests. But they also, as they continue to break things down, they realize that eventually you get to a point where you can't see the point at which something was created. Or in other words, everything that you see is made from something you can't see. Or in biblical terms, right, the things that are seen are made from things that are not yet seen. And so there is a concept or a principle that spiritual creates physical. So of course now we understand that why God would be upset, because thought is now an invisible thing. Imagination is an invisible thing. It only exists to the person who's doing the imagining. And to them, it's not a real 3D conceptualized thing. It is something that they have seen in their mind, and they believe that and it's real to them in their mind. We have people right now that are out here sick and they have mental illnesses because in their mind they see something that's going on, and we might call them crazy, but to them it's not crazy, because when something's in the mind, it becomes real. Here's a scientific truth. Once something is in your subconscious mind, once it gets to your subconscious mind, once your mind believes a thing, your subconscious mind does not know if it's real or not. There have been people scientifically proven, as has been proven medically, that have died in their sleep from simply having one dream or one nightmare, not even knowing if it was real or not, and the mind could care less. The mind does not try to decipher what's the truth from a lie. Anything you give it, once you have got it in there, once it's locked in, it's going to take it as truth. So 95% of your life being lived in the subconscious and 5% of your life being lived consciously, right, based off of your will. So I will say this to you today, that is a very good idea to take the will, your conscious mind, and willfully, skillfully, right, willfully, skillfully, learn how to use your conscious mind to pass on what you want in your life to your subconscious mind. Learn how to do so. Right? Put it in there. Put your mind at night, especially at night, purposefully on an imagination of a thing that's going to bring something fruitful into your life. In the book of Job, Job said, "It's upon my bed that you open my ears and you seal my instructions." And you seal the instructions, right? And so what does that mean? Job recognized that it is when I'm about to go to sleep or when I am asleep that you open my conscious mind and you seal the imaginations and thoughts of my conscious mind in my subconscious mind. Why is that important? Because in the words of Wayne Dyer, who has passed on and gone now, Wayne Dyer is known as the father of motivation. Wayne Dyer would always sit there and say, the last 5 minutes of your night before you go to bed are the most important time you will ever have. Why? And this was I'm quoting him now. He said, because you're getting ready to marinate in whatever is on your mind for the next 8 hours as you sleep. It was Neville Goddard, who has passed away as well. Neville Goddard, who said, I have found God, and I found him to be my own wonderful human imagination. Now, I'm not going to take that one as actual truth, because if God is human imagination, then God would not be upset with man using imagination, right? So God is more upset at the power behind or using his power in the wrong way, in the wrong manner, the wrong fashion, as imagination and thought is a spiritual activity. Imagination and thought is not a physical activity. It is a spiritual one. And now you guys all understand, we've already went over it, that the things that you see in this physical must come from the invisible, which means the things that are reality must come from the spiritual, which also translates to meaning that everything you will have in your life must first become something that you have conceived in your mind. It is the conception of a thing. It is in the idea of pushing a thought out that is undeveloped. It is a woman having to give premature birth, or having a child, unfortunately, that was misshapen or misdeveloped. That is the people who do not conceptualize and framework out or revolve in their mind the fullness of an imagination, the fullness of an idea. That is a dangerous person. So YouTube, tonight, as you all get ready to go to bed, or maybe you're watching this in the daytime, or I don't know, whenever you're watching it, I do hope that if you are watching in the daylight, that you do, before you go to bed, come back, save this, right? Come back, rewatch it, and get this locked into your head, so that you can remember and remind yourself that one of the most dangerous things to do is to listen to something at night musically that won't produce what you wanted to produce the next day. To watch a movie that won't produce what you wanted to produce. To have a phone conversation with somebody that won't produce what you wanted to produce. And I will promise you this, there is a law, the law of cause and effect, or in biblical terms, the law of sowing and reaping. And it says, whatsoever a man soweth, that also shall he reap. It means that whatever you are planting, a seed is an idea. Whatever you are sowing into the mind, at some point, it will become your reality. Whether that is tomorrow, whether that is next week, whether that is next year, whether that was 10 years from now. I don't know if you ever met somebody who has been through a traumatic situation. And just from you doing something that reminds them of that traumatic situation, even if it happened 30 years ago, their body might flinch at it, or you might see their eyes get big at it, and they don't even recognize that they're doing it anymore. And you might say, well, what is that, right? We call it trauma. But what it really is because no one's ever told you this, but the mind of man is not just simply in your head. The mind of man flows through every cell, every atom in your body. So if a woman has gone through physical abuse in a past relationship, and you reach your hand towards her, or you jump a little bit at something, and she flinches, and she, kind of looks at you crazy, and you're wondering why that is happening, it is because her mind her cells, every part of her mind throughout her whole body, has remembered what has happened. And so now subconsciously, without her even having to think about it, the body reacts. It's the same way fear is. The moment you feel fear, once that's locked into every part of your mind, every part of your cell, now when somebody says boo, all of a sudden you flinch and you take off running, don't even think about it. It could be nothing, and you're down the hall, you're down the street somewhere, right? Because your body is reacting to what the mind has already accepted as a true thing. So tonight, let's get our imagination under control. Let's use it correctly. Let's not give God a chance to flood out the good things that we can have in our life. Let's not waste it on wicked things, vain things, empty things. Let's not waste it on people who really, truth be told, don't have any ambition to see you succeed or to see you make it on top, right? Let's not waste it on things that are of no good or not of good report. Let's use it for the benefit of us. Let's use it for the building up, the edification of us. Let's use it for the building up of someone else. Use your imagination for the good of seeing somebody healed. Use your imagination for the good of seeing yourself whole, seeing yourself wealthy, seeing yourself prosperous, seeing yourself in a great relationship, seeing yourself loving yourself. Use it for the good instead of for the bad. Instead of using it and thinking and sitting here and dwelling on what somebody else did or dwelling on what somebody else said, and you're letting that marinate in your mind over and over and over again to the point now you're 50 years old still hating somebody that did something to you when you were 16. Imagination is a powerful thing. Hence the reason God got upset in Genesis. Once again, YouTube, I want to thank you guys for your time tonight. Hopefully you guys learned something. Again, do me a favor, like and subscribe to this video. If you got something you want me to talk about, go ahead and hit that comment. Drop something down there for me. Also, follow me over there on TikTok. For those of you guys who like the shorter, compact version, maybe you want to hear that first and then say, okay, well, give me the big details, right? You can kind of jump back and forth between those two. Really love you guys. I appreciate y'all. YouTube, have a good night. Or if you watch this in the daytime, have a great day. And make sure you use that imagination correctly. God bless y'all.